Om Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vandhe Paramanandhamadhavam Yam Brahma Varunindra Rudra Marutaha Sunvanti Divyaistave Vede Sangapadakramopanishider Gayantiyam Samaga Dhyanavastita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyantiyam Yogino Yasyantam na viduhu sura suragana Devaya tasmai namaha Hari Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. Namaskar and welcome to Hinduism in Focus. This program comes to you with the compliments of the Sanatan Vedic Dharma Pandit Sabha of Region 3. Indeed, it's a great discourse we have been going through, and that is chapter 7 of the Srimad Bhagavad Geeta, coming to us with the blessings, the grace, and the universal teaching of the universal teacher, Jagat Guru Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the manifest divinity on earth. We are looking at chapter 7 verse 11 for today's discourse, and we will find it talks about desires. In fact, we find a definition for desires, and the highest of all desires are desire for moksha or liberation. As such, Lord Krishna tells us of his intimate connection with all things around us, which should help us to aspire to great realization. Lord says in verse 11 of chapter 7, Sri Bhagavanu Vacha Balam Bhalvatam Asmi Kamaraga Vivarjitam Dharma Vridhu Bhuteshu Kamosmi Bharata Shrabha. Lord says that I am the strength of the strong, devoid of desire and passion. In beings, I am desire, not contrary to dharma, O chief of Bharatas, that is Arjuna. Now Arjuna, as we know, has been the representative man or representative human of all of us. And he says, O chief of Bharatas, he saw Arjuna as being fit among all other people to receive this knowledge. And all of us too is when we become fit innately that we will actually be receptive of these teachings. At sometimes we are lost in the pages of the Bhagavad Gita as to what the Lord may be saying here. But when one becomes totally fit for this teaching, then the teaching itself comes along, and we will be surprised how the teachings become so much integrated in our lives beyond our expectation. So Krishna says that I am the strength of the strong and devoid of desire and passion. But in beings, in all of us, I am desire, not contrary to dharma. So here we have to understand desire. It is worth understanding because in many ways, desire in Hinduism has been defined as something that is not good. And that is not so. We will see Krishna in this verse showing us the way of desires. In fact, the verse is self-explanatory in that the desire, what we call kama, is the hankering of the mind for the objects that are invisible and not yet obtained, while raga or passion is the clinging and carving for the visible and the obtained object. So there's a difference here now. Raga is passion, and that is the clinging of the mind and the craving for the visible things or the obtained object, things that we have gotten and we can see and hold. While the kama is a constant hankering, the desire of the mind for the objects that have not been obtained. So once we want something, we hanker for something that has not yet been attained. That is what we call kama, or desire. But what has been attained becomes a passion, or raga. The strength is abused, which is directed towards the fulfillment of desire and passion. So all strength that we have now, once our attention is only on these things, what happened? We are abusing our strength. Not that we must not desire. In fact, we will come to understand that in a moment. On the other hand, the strength utilized on noble and holy causes gets sanctified. So now we come there that the doings of Ravana and Rama are examples of the abuse of power and the proper use of strength. So therefore, desire as such is not a vice. So all the desire that goes towards strengthening and towards noble causes, they are sanctified in God, and they actually brings us to the path of realization. But the desires and the hankering for the things that go contrary to human development, things that go contrary to the development of the world, and that suppress others, and suppress to an extent divinity as such, they are actually taking us farther away from this realization. This is what Lord intends to bring to us in this verse of chapter verse 11. And one example, therefore, that we come to know of is that of Rama and Ravana. In Ramayana, we saw Ravana as a character that was in contrary to the character that was Rama. In Rama's case, he honored power, he valued power. There was no abuse for it, there was no hankering for it only for satisfaction of the ego, but rather Rama was willing to give up power for the good of the people. We saw in certain episodes in the Ramayana of Valmiki, etc., and even of Tulsidasa, that Bharata, he journeyed to, and Bharata was a great character, of course. One has to study his life as a worshipper. He journeyed with all the well-wishers to the forest where Rama was dwelling with Lakshmana and Sita, in order to persuade Rama to change his mind and to return to rule Ayodhya. Rama, of course, was not going to buy into that. In fact, he pointed out to Bharata certain important lessons which we may probably look at a later date. And of course, Bharata went back to Ayodhya. And after 14 years have exhausted, Rama, at that moment, even then, he was not willing to regain power. His desire was not for such. His desire was for the welfare of Dharma and for the people of the nation. So, the desire was secondary. In fact, it didn't even exist. So what he did, he sent Hanumana to survey and to see what was happening in Ayodhya and whether Bharata was willing to continue to rule. And in fact, he instructed Hanumana that if there's a desire in Bharata to rule, then let him rule in the interest of the nation. And Rama was prepared not to return. He was prepared not to have power. And despite Rama was all compassionate, he was educated, merciful, versed in all areas of sciences, yet this did not, what we say, build his ego for the abuse or the taking over of power. He allowed it to go through the freest and most liberal procedures, and only if there was a need from Bharat's side, then he would have taken over again. Of course, we know what would have taken place, and the episode goes on in the case of Rama. Unlike that, in the case of Ravana, it was totally different. In Ravana's case, there was a constant hankering for world power. In fact, Ravana had world power, but he did not use it to the advantage of his people. He thought that his power was more important than himself and his people, and therefore what he did, he dedicated his strength towards the abuse of this power, and the desire therefore for this power and its abuse became paramount in him. In the end, he suffered, the nation suffered, the people suffered, and even the good ones along the line suffered because of this warrant desire for the abuse of power. So Lord is saying that desire is not contrary to dharma. I am that desire in all beings. Therefore, God is inside of us for the attainment of God's plan. This is how divine things are in Hinduism. And I am the strength of the strong that is devoid of desire and passion. So desire, therefore, is not a vice. Desire to eat is sanctioned one. When it is prompted by hunger, the desire for self-emulation is a virtue. The desire to excel another in good conduct is laudable. The keen desire to obtain the grace of the Lord is a divine gift and a prelude to God vision. This is why Paramahansa Sri Ramakrishna has said, why does the mind deviate when one sits in meditation? It is due to base desires. A fly sits on the sacramental food and necks on filth. But the case of the bee is different. It sits on a blossom or in its hive and nowhere else. The worldly minded sadhakas or worshipper are like the housefly, and the Paramhamsa are like the bee. The former are occasionally devoted, and the latter ever devoted to the Lord. So some of us are like the housefly. 1-2 times we're devoted to religious ideals, and some of us are like the bee. Either we be ourselves, be at our own place, or we sit on the honey, on the blossom of flowers. So we are ever devoted to the Lord. This is a great analogy Sri Ramakrishna has given us in connection, association with this great verse of chapter 7, where Lord expands and make desire clear a definition. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om.